In the small town of Millfield, the locals knew to stay away from the woods on the outskirts of town. It was said that a monster lurked within, a creature that was unstoppable and invincible. Over the years, many brave souls had ventured into the woods to try and find the monster, but none had returned. One night, a group of teenagers decided to explore the woods, convinced that the stories of the monster were just myths. As they entered the woods, they felt a sense of unease wash over them, and they began to regret their decision. However, they continued on, determined to prove that the monster didn't exist. As they walked deeper into the woods, they heard a strange rustling sound, and suddenly the ground shook beneath them. They looked up to see a massive, hulking figure approaching them, its eyes glowing with an otherworldly light. The teens tried to run, but the monster was too fast. It caught up to them in seconds, and with one swift motion, it crushed one of them underfoot. The others scattered, running in different directions, but the monster pursued them relentlessly. Over the next few days, the townspeople watched in horror as the monster tore through Millfield, killing anyone who stood in its way. The police tried to stop it, but their bullets and weapons had no effect. As the days turned into weeks, it became clear that the monster was unstoppable. The townspeople began to panic, realizing that they had no way to protect themselves from the creature. They tried everything they could think of, from setting traps to creating barricades, but the monster always found a way to break through. Finally, a group of scientists came up with a plan. They had been studying the monster and had discovered that it had a weakness. They developed a serum that, when injected into the monster, would weaken it and make it vulnerable to attack. The townspeople rallied together, and they managed to inject the monster with the serum. It weakened and slowed down, and the police were finally able to kill it. As the town began to recover from the devastation, the scientists continued their research on the monster. They discovered that it had been created in a lab, the result of a genetic experiment gone wrong. The monster had been designed to be a weapon, but it had turned on its creators and escaped. The scientists vowed to never let such a horrific creation happen again. They destroyed all of the research related to the monster and promised to only use their knowledge for the betterment of humanity. In the end, the town of Millfield was left to rebuild and mourn the loss of their loved ones. They never forgot the terror that had descended upon them, and they always remained vigilant, knowing that there could be more monsters out there waiting to be unleashed. In a top-secret research facility, a team of scientists was working on a groundbreaking experiment that could change the world as we know it. They were attempting to create a portal to a parallel universe, a feat that had never been achieved before. After months of preparation and testing, they finally succeeded. But their success was short-lived as something went wrong. The portal caused a quantum anomaly to be created, unleashing unspeakable terror on the world. The anomaly was like a rift in reality, and it was growing bigger with each passing second. People began to see strange things, and bizarre events were taking place everywhere. It was as if reality itself was being distorted and twisted in unimaginable ways. The government was quick to respond, and they set up a task force to investigate the anomaly and find a way to stop it. But it was too late. The anomaly was too powerful, and it was growing at an alarming rate. The team of scientists responsible for creating the portal was quickly rounded up and questioned. But they had no answers. Meanwhile, people were disappearing at an alarming rate. They were being swallowed up by the anomaly, never to be seen again. The government attempted to quarantine the affected areas, but it was no use. The anomaly was spreading like wildfire, and it seemed that nothing could stop it. Then one day, a group of scientists stumbled upon a possible solution. They theorized that the anomaly was being fed by energy from our universe, and that they could stop it by cutting off its food supply. They proposed that they create a miniature black hole and use it to siphon off the energy from the anomaly. The government, desperate for a solution, gave them the green light. The scientists set to work immediately, and after weeks of preparation, they created a miniature black hole. They then launched it into the anomaly, hoping it would work. At first, it seemed like nothing had changed. The anomaly was still growing, and people were still disappearing. But then, slowly but surely, the anomaly began to shrink. It was working. The black hole was siphoning off the energy from the anomaly, and it was beginning to collapse in on itself. In the end, the anomaly was completely destroyed, and the world returned to normal. The government disbanded the task force, and the scientists responsible for creating the portal were charged with reckless endangerment. It was a terrifying experience, one that would never be forgotten. But it was also a valuable lesson, a reminder that science is a powerful tool, and we must always use it with caution. In the small town of Millville, there was an old urban legend about a creature called the Scratcher. The legend stated that anyone who entered the old abandoned mansion on the outskirts of town would be cursed by the Scratcher, a creature with long, razor-sharp claws that could slice through flesh like butter. For years, people dismissed the legend as just a scary story, until one day, a group of teenagers decided to test it out for themselves. They snuck into the mansion late at night, giggling and daring each other to explore the creepy old house. But as they wandered through the dusty halls, they began to feel like they were being watched. Suddenly, they heard a scratching sound coming from one of the rooms. They cautiously approached the door and pushed it open, revealing a dark room with a single rocking chair in the center. They stepped inside, trying to shake off their unease, when suddenly the chair began to move on its own. The teenagers were terrified and quickly fled the mansion, convinced that they had awoken the Scratcher. But it wasn't until the next day that they realized the true horror of what they had unleashed. One by one, the members of the group began to experience strange scratches on their bodies, as if someone had clawed at them in their sleep. The scratches grew deeper and more numerous with each passing day, and the teenagers soon realized that they had unleashed the Scratcher from its urban legend prison. They tried to warn their friends and family, but no one believed them. As the scratches turned into full-blown wounds and infections, the teenagers knew that they had to put an end to the Scratcher before it claimed any more victims. They returned to the mansion, armed with makeshift weapons, ready to face their fears and put the creature to rest. But as they entered the mansion, they realized that the Scratcher was no mere urban legend. It was a real creature, with a thirst for blood and a hatred for humans. They fought valiantly, but the creature was too strong, too fast, and too deadly. In the end, only one of the teenagers survived the encounter with the Scratcher. He escaped the mansion, but not before being deeply scarred, both physically and mentally, by his encounter with the creature. The Scratcher had become more than just an urban legend. It had become a real and terrifying threat to anyone who dared to cross its path.